This is TJ with TechMadeEZ. Welcome to the channel. My channel is all about making things affordable, practical, and easy. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be going over ZimaOS. And that's going to include installing it, grabbing it from the website, creating a bootable USB, installing it on hardware. We're going to be a quick walkthrough of the interface. We're going to talk about the file manager. We're going to talk about shares. We're going to set up a RAID RAID 5, and then we're going to set up JellyFin. And then we're going to go over VMs. One thing that was a really nice feature of the ZimaOS software is they have built into it a VM. They call it ZVM for Zima Virtual Machines, and it's great. It's so easy to use. It's all pre-configured. Everything's ready to go. I'm really excited about that. Now, VMs aren't your thing, and you just want a simple server. This software is great for that. This is one of the simplest server software operating systems I have ever used. Now, is it perfect? No, but it's a work in progress. And can the home user use it today that's never set a server up before? Yes, it's very simple, and you'll see that as we walk through the steps of installing and setting up ZimaOS. Now, the ZimaOS interface is based on the Casa interface. They're both done by the same company, and it's a great interface to go ahead and install Docker apps. And what's really nice is that they've made it so easy to install Docker apps, because if you've never installed Docker apps before coming from Windows, it's a little bit of a learning curve, where this way you just press it and it's installed and it's ready to go. And they have a huge library of Zima, CasaOS, Docker apps that are just ready to install with one click. And they keep on adding to that, and they keep on improving on this operating system as well. Now, what I'm going to be installing this on is I'm going to be installing this on an HP Z230, and the reason why I'm installing the HP Z230, it makes a great media server because it has 5 SATA ports. You can't put 5 full-size hard drives in it. You can put 3 in it, but you can also put 5 SSDs in it if you want. So it's a little bit more versatile. You can pick up an HP Z230 for starting at $50 to about $85, including shipping and handling. And usually it will come with some i5, i7. The one I'm using today came with an E3 Xeon 1231 version 3. It has 4 cores, 4 threads. Now, I will have to say we're going to cover a lot of ground in this video, so I'm sorry it's a little long-winded. It's going to be a little around 40 minutes, maybe a little over, but there will be timestamps below where you can just go ahead and go to what you're most interested in. So let's take a look at the hardware. Let's get started. Okay, right now I'm in my office home lab, and this is the HP Z230 that we're going to be using. Now, I do want to talk about hardware compatibility, because ZimaOS was really made to go with their Zima boards. And so I don't know the expansion of hardware compatibility that they're offering, but this I do know is that this down here has a LSI controller card in it. It did not recognize the LSI controller card. Plus, I tried a really new controller card in here, and it didn't work, but it works fine on older systems like this one here. And in fact, this one here is the one I was talking about. It can take 3 hard drives plus 2 2.5 drives. It comes with onboard SATA, 5-port SATA controller, and this is a top view of it. If you want to learn more about the system, I'll leave a link down below, which I go into more detail. So as far as hardware compatibility goes, I'm hoping in the future that they're going to widen that hardware compatibility. Now, I do have a 10 gigabit network card in here. It did recognize that. I'm not using that to demo the product, though. So I just want you to be aware it's more likely going to work better with older systems than newer systems. And hopefully in the future they will provide more and more hardware support. Not just for newer stuff, but existing stuff like the LSI controller card that's in there. Okay, because I'm using all of my SATA ports in the small form factor, I'm going to be installing this on an NVMe drive, and I'm going to be using an NVMe enclosure right here. And I'll put a description down below which enclosures you can use, because not all enclosures allow you to boot from a USB drive with an NVMe in it. And then if you have an SSD, you can get this SSD adapter to a USB, and you could boot off of an SSD. And then I'm going to be the installation software I'm going to be putting on the 64-bit Samsung drive. Now, you can run Linux off of USB drives. In this particular case, because this operating system is going to be doing a lot of accessing, reading and writing with the operating system, I wouldn't use a regular USB. At least with the NVMe, I'm getting 500 megabytes read and write for my operating system. All right, so here I am at my Windows desktop, and what we're going to do here is we're going to go really quickly. We're going to go ahead and we're going to download two programs. Obviously, we're going to download ZimaOS, but in case you don't have a way to make a bootable install disk, I would recommend Rufus. When you go here to Rufus, and I'll have these links listed down below, scroll down. Don't hit any of these downloads. That takes you to other apps. But you want to scroll down until you get to the links here, the download links. And I was download the one with the P on it. That just means it's portable. And these version numbers may change, because we're on version 4.5. Depending on when you watch this, it could be on version 4.7, whatever. So you just want to click that. It downloads really quick. That's all there is to downloading that. And then as far as ZimaOS, again, I'll have a link below. It takes you directly to the download page, and you're just going to click on this first one here, the install image. And so you click that. Now I've already installed this, so I'm going to stop this, or I've already downloaded this. It'll take maybe, depending on your system, anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes to download that. Okay, so once you have that downloaded, then I've already copied Rufus to my desktop here, and I just put it in a folder because it does create some files, even though it's a portable version of it. You're just going to double click on that, hit yes. So I've already put that 64 USB drive into my system, and it automatically recognizes that. If you have more than one, you may want to choose that. It's not going to allow you to choose your operating system, so that's one thing about Rufus. It knows what the operating system's residing on. So we just go here to select the file, and then we're just going to select that, and we're just going to leave everything default here. We're not going to change anything here. And we're just going to hit start. Now it's going to obviously erase everything on your USB, so if there's anything on there you want to keep, use a different USB or copy stuff off of there. So we're going to hit OK here. This will just take a minute for it to write that image, and then we're going to go ahead and go to the computer and boot this up. So I'll just let this run for a minute. Okay, once it's done, it'll just show green and ready, and we just hit close here, and we can just take that out of our computer, and let's go put it into the computer. ZimaOS on. Okay, like I said, I'm using the HP system, and F9 takes me into the boot menu. Again, depending on which computer you use, you'll have to look and see what your boot menu option is. Now, one thing is, because I'm installing this onto a USB enclosure for my NVMe, then I also went into my BIOS and I set it up so that it will boot from a USB. So depending on how you configure it, if you're going to be installing it inside your computer or if you're going to be running this from a USB, will depend on whether you want to set that up to automatically start from your USB in your BIOS. And again, you'll have to look at your manufacturer on how you do that. Most BIOSes are pretty much the same. It's just some of them are more text-based like this one, and some of them are graphic interface. But anyway, so this SSK is my enclosure for my NVMe, this Samsung flash drive. That's what we just created our bootable install disk of. And so then it's just showing my drives down here as well. And these are the hard drives, or the SSDs we're going to use for our RAID array. So let's go ahead and hit the Samsung. So once you get here, it's just saying you want to install this. Of course we do. You hit enter. Then you want to go choose your drive, and again, mine's this 256 gig drive, so I'm going to hit yes here. Now it says if you continue, the contents on the disk will be wiped out. Of course we want to do that, and it just is giving you a second warning, so you hit yes. Now this part of the install, once it gets to 80%, it has to do a lot of copying over to whatever drive you're booting ZimaOS from, so it may stay on 80% for a while. Don't think that it's frozen or anything like that. Just let it run its course. It may take, I don't know, anywhere 10 minutes or so for this to happen. So let's come back to this after it's done. Okay, so once it's done, you're just going to want to remove, just hit OK, and go ahead and remove your USB and let it boot. it'll just automatically start. Now, if you haven't installed anything with Linux before, that was just a whole bunch of files that Linux uses for the operating system. So here, once it boots up, what we're going to do here now is we're going to grab our IP address of our network card, and it is the 192.168.1.140. So let's go back to our Windows desktop and go ahead and put that in, and let's get into ZimaOS. All right, so I'm back on my Windows desktop. I'm just going to go ahead and type in 192.168.1.140, and that'll take us to the login. And you're just going to say whatever your language is, except that. And then we need to create a username. I'm just going to put in TG here. The password has to be at least 5 characters long. And you can make that obviously whatever you want. And then for whatever reason, it gives you can start from the App Store or start with files. We're going to start with the dashboard. Okay, so I'm just going to go over the interface here a little bit. And again, if you've seen my other videos on this, I've done this before. But what this does is this shows you your CPU usage here. It shows your RAM usage. Your hard drive storage is here. We're going to go into that here in a minute. And then what you have is your network here. And then down below here is widgets, settings. And I'd forgotten that these widget settings were down here because in CasaOS they're located somewhere different. But I don't know why you just wouldn't want all of these on here. But that's up to you. You can turn them. You can turn these widgets on and off if you want to. And so now the reason why I clicked on this clock, if you don't click on this clock, it'll keep it in 24 hours. So if you click on it, now it'll break it up to AM, PM. So if you're not familiar with ZimaOS, this is where your app store is, and we're going to go in here because we're going to install JellyFin, and so there's just a lot of apps in here, and they keep on adding apps all the time, which is great. And then what you have here is you have files. Now ZimaOS comes with some default folders. App data is where a lot of your Casa or your Casa Docker app information is stored when you install a Docker app through Casa. Documents, obviously, for your documents, downloads, gallery is just pictures, media, movies, your music, TV shows, so on and so forth. So let's go back to the main screen here. Settings is just right here, but you can go to settings from the top here as well. Right here takes you to the same place. So what we're interested in doing today, though, is we are going to install JellyFin. But before we do that, I'm going to go back to files here just for a sec. Okay, so one thing that ZimaOS automatically does, they have a share that's on this data folder. It's already been pre-configured for you. And what they're doing right now you cannot create a Samba share with different username and passwords. It uses the username and password to your ZimaOS operating system. But before, they didn't even have a password on, so at least this is better than not having a password at all. So let's just go ahead and go to that share. So I'm going to go to network. So I've already typed this in before, so there we have our 192.168.1.140. So we'll type that in here, and when we put that in, it's going to ask for a username and password, and that's again is your Zima username and password. So I'm just going to put this in here really quick. And so any share that you create with a Zima is going to use that username and password. I think in the future they're going to make it so you can have multiple usernames and passwords, but at least it's protected in that regard. Now, which means that if this is for your house, you're going to have to obviously trust the people in your house with your username and password. They don't delete anything from your ZimaOS operating system. So now this is the folder right here where we were just looking at those, the folders here through the files browser here. And so now we can copy files over here. So if I want to go to media here and say movies, I can go ahead and I have File Manager open up here, and I've got a video file here in the videos directory, and I'm just going to copy that over. And so that's a 2 gig file. It'll take a sec to copy that over. Now the one thing is that what we're going to do next though is we want to have our own storage. We're not going to necessarily use the ZimaOS storage. You can use that for other things that you're doing, but for our media files, for our JellyFin, we want to store all of our videos and files over there, and possibly the family pictures, that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to do now, is we're going to create a RAID using ZimaOS. Now in the media here, if we go back here to our Zima files here, if we click on media, we can see that in our movies is the file we just created, that we are connected to with our file browser here, our file browser in Windows. So now let's do this. Let's go ahead and create a RAID array with Zima, and then we're going to go ahead and connect again through a file browser to a share that's on there. Then we'll copy some movie files over, and then we'll install JellyFin. Okay, so now let's just go ahead. Now there's 2 ways that you can get to your hard drives. You can get to it from here, and then there's storage here, or you can get to it from settings here, and you just hit storage, and now discover new hard drives. And I've got hard drives in here, and it's assigning it a drive bay. So we have these bay 2, bay 4, bay 5. Now this particular drive is a 4 terabyte drive, and I am sending a message to the Zima people. They were really good at getting back with me before. For whatever reason, I could not use this to create my RAID array. I don't know if it's my system, because I spent hours trying all kinds of different ways to have this one show up where I can use it in my RAID array. So again, I don't know why this is happening, but I have 4 hard drives that we can put into our RAID array here. So let's just go back to storage here. Okay, once you get in here, you have some options. RAID 0 is just if you're going to stripe those drives. There's no parity. If one drive goes down, you lose all of your data on all those drives. Obviously, we don't want to do that. In our particular case, RAID 1 is just a mirror. Usually you do that with 2 drives. So you could mirror these 2 drives if you only have 2 drives that you're using. And maybe you have 2 6 or 2 8 terabyte drives, and you want parity between those 2, so you could do that there. But we have these 4 SSDs that we're going to use here, so I'm just picking those there, and so we're going to do RAID 5. RAID 5 gives us the ability to lose 1 drive, and we can still recover our data, put in a new drive, and rebuild the RAID array, and we have all of our data. Alright, so we're doing RAID 5 here, so we just want to go down, scroll down to the bottom here, and it's going to hit next. So we'll just go ahead. Now I can name this whatever I want. I'm just going to call it SSD for SSD storage. And so you can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to hit I understand. It's going to delete anything that's on any of those drives, so we're going to go ahead and create this. Now, depending on your drive speed and what you're having here, this may take a few minutes, but it's done there. And so now we can go into here, and here is our SSD storage that I have here. And you'll want to go back in and talk about this RAID that we created. So when you go into the storage, it's going to show you representation of a computer in storage here. And the ones in white are the ones that we use to create our RAID array. And I want you to notice here that it says, let me blow this up a little bit just so you can see. It says that these are hard drives. Well, in reality, when you hover over these, they're really it knows that it has SSDs in them, and we use 4 of those. Those 4 SSDs were 4 terabyte, obviously, which gives us a total of 16 terabytes. But because one drive is able to fail, we only have 12 terabytes of usable hard drive space, because it's sharing parity through all 4 hard drives. If you're not familiar how RAID 5 works, that's how RAID 5 works. So if you have a drive goes down, you can replace it, rebuild the RAID array, and all of your data is still there, still safe. Now, this section over here that says SSD, when we hover over this, these are for M.2 SSDs, not for your standard SSDs. So that's why I just wanted to clarify this, because even though we have SSDs over here and it says hard drives, this is really for your standard SSDs, where this over here is for M.2 SSDs if you were going to put those in the system. Okay, so now that we've created our RAID 5 drive, our SSD RAID 5 drive, I'm going to talk about shares here for a minute. So the way ZimaOS works is right now when you create a share, and I might have mentioned this before, that share username and password is your ZimaOS username and password. You can't create multiple passwords. Now you might be able to do that if you went to, if you know how to go to the command prompt and do that from the command prompt, but in the GUI interface, it basically just takes your username and password and applies that to any share that you make. And so here's our SSD RAID drive that we just created, but I'm just going to go down here to this root symbol here, and when you click on this root symbol, this ZimaOS hard drive, this is the operating system, those folders that I was showing you here. Well, when we go back here, let's go back one, you'll notice this little green here, and that's because it is sharing this. It automatically created this share when ZimaOS was installed. Now when I created my RAID 5 SSD drive, it also put a share on here. If you wanted to remove that share, you could just go ahead and say stop sharing, but I actually want to share this because we're going to copy some files over here. So if I go over here to data, which is over here, and I wanted to share a folder, let's just say that let's share this document folder. So I'm just going to hit share here, and what it'll do is it's going to just take the share name. When you go into Windows, into your file manager, or Mac, it's going to be documents. So so now it's created that share, and again it's going to use the ZimaOS username and password that you had set up to log into ZimaOS. So that's how shares work, and I don't need this share here, so I'm going to stop sharing here. So it's just that easy to create a share and to stop a share. So at this point we're going to go on to our SSD RAID drive, and I'm going to create a few folders in here, and then we're going to go to the file manager and connect to our SSD share and copy some files over. Okay, so really quick, as far as username and passwords go, like I said, it uses the ZimaOS username and password. In the future they are planning on making it so that you can have multiple username and passwords to give access to multiple people instead of just sharing one username and password. Alright, so now that we've created our RAID drive, this SSD RAID drive, let's go ahead. Oh, and one thing I need to show you here is that this is kind of cool. When you hover over this, it'll show you what's available with that RAID drive, their percentage, so on and so forth, if you're interested in seeing how full the drive is. But what we're going to do here, let's go ahead and create a folder. We're going to call this media, and then we're going to create another folder, and we're going to call this personal. And you can arrange it whatever you want. This would maybe your personal files, documents, whatever you want to save here. You could set up folders in here for family, so on and so forth. But now that we've done this, when we create this RAID drive, it automatically creates a share for it. We don't have to do that. So if we go into our file manager, we click on network, and we click here, we see our, let's just type in our IP address here, our .140, click on it, and we don't have to sign in again because we've already done that. And so now if we click on here, here's those two folders that we did. But what I want to do here is I want to just go ahead and assign this a drive letter. So let's map our drive letter to that, and I'm just going to leave it Z, and we'll hit finish here. You can make the drive letter whatever you want, and so now we've mapped to that drive. So now what I want to do is I want to copy some movie files over to the media folder so that we can install JellyFin and access our movie files from there. So now let's go ahead and install JellyFin. Now JellyFin is found in the App Store, and again these are Docker apps, and this is where ZimaOS really shines. It makes it really easy for a new user to use Docker apps, because someone that's never used them before, there is a learning curve to learn Docker. But with ZimaOS, you can just click on it and install it like a regular app. So depending on what you're doing with your ZimaOS or any Docker server, ZimaOS just makes it really easy. So we're just going to look up JellyFin here. Oops. We're going to look up JellyFin here, and here it is right here. All we have to do is hit install, and that's all we have to do to set up our Docker Casa app. Now, the one thing we will have to do after this is installed, and it doesn't take that long, maybe 30 seconds, but the one thing that we will have to do is we're going to have to point where our media is once this installs, and we'll do that as soon as it's installed. Okay, so we installed we copied our media over to our RAID drive, our SS RAID drive here, and it's over here in media. Now, if we click on this here, and we click this, you would think that this is the path, but that isn't the exact path. So you can't just go in here and copy and paste or copy this path. Let me explain. So in Linux, when you create a drive, like we did with this RAID, it actually mounts it to a folder. So when we go in here to our JellyFin over here, and with these three dots on the side, we're going to click on those, and we're going to tell it where the location of our data is. So when we scroll down here, under volumes, you don't have to worry about this first one, and you don't have to worry about this here. This is the one, this is your media. This is where your media is going to be stored. So what you want to do here, now this is where it's a little confusing, because we also created a folder on our new RAID drive called media, but it's not under data, it's under the SSD. So, but that SSD drive is mounted, so in order to get the mount, we have to press on this square here. So you click on that, and media here is a mount folder. So our SSD is mounted on the media. We click this here. Now the media folder that we actually created where our movies are stored is right here. So we click on media, hit select, and now this is our path to our RAID storage drive or storage pool that we created. So all you have to do is hit save here, and once we hit save here, it's going to reinstall the app, reset it up, and now we can open up JellyFin and set it up. So let's open up JellyFin now. Okay, so when you come to your setup screen here, there's a little bit of wizard that you're going to come to here. So what we're going to do is you're just going to choose your language, and then you're going to choose your username, and I'm just going to put TG here, and then a password. Then we're going to hit next, and we're going to add our libraries right now. Now we could hit next and add them later, but we're just going to add them here. In fact, what I will do is I'll add one library in this setup, and then I'll show you how to add another library once you are in JellyFin. So let's add our movies library here. So we're just going to select movies. Now if you wanted to, you can change this movies to whatever description you want. In my case, I split my movies up. So like I have kids movies, and I just call that kids movies, and then all of my PG and G movies are in there, but I'm just going to leave this as the default. You can name these display names any way you want. So once you're here, then you hit your folders here, and there's a plus sign here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to click on that plus sign. Now, if we put that path in right, here's our media folder where we put our movies, where I copied movies over to. So here are the movies I copied over. And in actual reality, if we go here to files, and I go here to my SSD media, and here's my movies right here that I put in here temporarily to set up JellyFin. So, and here are those movies right here. So I just hit OK, and now I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm going to hit next. So now it just wants to know our preferred metadata language and what region or country we're in. Just hit next here if you don't have to change that, and you can just leave this the way it is and hit next. Finished. And now we can just log in, and here are the movies. Here's our movies that we created, and here are the movies right here. Now, let's say that you want to add more to this. I have some TV shows I want to add. So I'm going to go up here, and up here where these three lines are, we can get into the setup features of JellyFin. And what I want to do here is I want to hit Dashboard and hit Libraries. And now I want to add more libraries. Now I could have added all the libraries I wanted, but a lot of times you may create more libraries after JellyFin's installed. So in this one, this is going to be TV shows, and they call this shows in JellyFin. And I'll just leave it. In fact, instead of leaving that shows, I'm just going to say TV shows. Then I'm going to go add my TV shows, and they're under media and under TV, and we'll hit OK, hit OK. And now we'll go to the dashboard, and it's going to scan the library for the metadata images. So we're going to go here now. Now I have my TV shows here. In fact, if we click here, there were some episodes. Well, this is in season 1. There's only a few episodes I copied over. And we can play any of these episodes that we want. Start one of these episodes. Now I turn the sound off so there won't be any sound playing. And there is my TV shows playing. And let's go back to home here, and we can start a movie here. And now we have our movies and TV shows added. That's all there is to installing JellyFin. This isn't a complete tutorial of JellyFin. I just wanted to show how easy it was to get into ZimaOS and set this up as a media player. Okay, so I just wanted to show how easy it was to set up this server and get something like JellyFin running where you can have now a media server. But I want to share one more thing with you with ZimaOS. And I think this is a really cool feature that ZimaOS has done, is they have automatically installed a virtual machine. So what that means is, if you're not familiar with the virtual machine, you can run a Linux operating system in there and try it out. Or you can run a Windows operating system in there, maybe independent of your Docker apps that you're running in ZimaOS. And by the way, ZimaOS, CasaOS, if I say Casa, ZimaOS is a CasaOS interface. And I may have mentioned that at the beginning, but what you have here is this ZVM, is a Zima virtual machine. And so what we're going to do here is I want to show you the power of a virtual machine. And you may or may not use this feature, but virtual machines are cool. Now let me explain why I like virtual machines. First of all, this Windows right here is not running on bare metal. I'm actually running Linux Mint, and I'm running Windows in a virtual machine right here to do this presentation or this demo of ZimaOS. So, but I want to show you how to set up a Zima virtual machine. It's really slick, really easy to do. So let's go ahead and get that set up. So what I'm going to do though is that I'm going to do the rest from my Linux desktop instead of this Windows desktop. So what I'm going to do is, I have virtual desktops in Linux, not to be confused with virtual machines. And so I'm just going to go to my other virtual desktop right here, and I already have ZimaOS opened up in the browser on my Linux desktop here. And it's going to mimic everything that we're looking at, the same server, but I'm just looking at it through my Linux desktop. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to Z virtual machines. And right now I'm actually running a virtual machine. I'm running Zorin OS, not be confused with ZimaOS. Zorin OS is a really slick operating system that is one of the ones that I recommend for new users, along with Linux Mint. But you can see it's operating in here in this virtual machine. What we're going to do right now is we're going to install KDE Neon in a virtual machine, and that way you can try out different Linux operating systems if you want to. So I'm going to go ahead and close this down, and then I'm going to close that. So I've already downloaded KDE Neon. So what happens once you download something that you want to move over to ZimaOS? So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to copy a file over to our server. Now we could do that through a file manager through Windows, or we could do that through the Linux or through the ZimaOS app. But first of all, let's go to Files here, and I'm going to go to Download, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit the Upload button. I'm going to hit Upload File, and then here is my file manager in Linux Mint. It's very similar to Windows, and so in my downloads directory here here's the latest version of KDE Neon. I'm going to double click on that, and then it's going to go ahead and copy that over. So this will just take a minute to copy over to the ZimaOS server, and then we'll go in and create our Zima VM of KDE Neon. Okay, KDE Neon is now copied to our download directory on our Zima server. So let's go ahead and let's go to ZimaOS, Z Virtual Machine. So down here at the left bottom corner it says Add VM. So we're just going to do that. We're going to click on Install Image. So we're going to click on this folder. We're going to click on Downloads, and here is our Neon, KDE Neon ISO. Select that, and now I'm just going to go ahead and name this KDE. We'll just name it right there. That's what it is, and it gets saved under your data under ZimaOS in the VM directory. I'm going to just give this 20 gigs. It doesn't necessarily need 20 gigs. And I'm going to give this 4 cores, and I'm going to give it 6 gigs of RAM. So I need to explain something here. Whenever you're setting up a VM, you're creating a software machine, basically. So you're going to tell this virtual machine or software machine how much disk space you want, how many cores you want it to run on, which we did right here. What's the memory that you want to assign to this VM, and then your networking. Now the NAT, I always like to choose Bridge because if you choose Bridge, it shares your network addresses in your house. So NAT, it uses its own network scheme. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Bridge, and I'm going to hit Create, and then it's going to go through the install. So and now if you just click in here, and then you can navigate with your keys here. If you don't click in there, after a few seconds, it will automatically start the install. Now, this doesn't install with Linux. If you don't know, Linux gives you a try before you install. So it's going to give you a graphical interface to KDE Neon that you can try before you even install it. So it's going to take it to that first, but instead of trying it, so this right here, we could go ahead and minimize this, and we could try KDE Neon right here if we wanted to, but we're going to go ahead and install KDE Neon. So we want to install the system, and this is all there is to installing most Linux operating systems. Not all, but most of them. Time zone is correct for me. We're just gonna, I'm doing English defaults. Now we want to just do erase disk here. Hit next, and it's just going to ask you for some information, and I'm just going to make this really simple. I'm going to call this machine KDE, and Neon, and I'm just putting in a simple password. Now, most people, when they install Linux, they don't like to do login automatically. For this one, this is just a VM. That's all, I'm going to go ahead and put that there. So now you just hit install. Then we'll come back. This is all you have to do, and it's just going to go through the install right now. And we'll come back when this is done. This might take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so once it's done installing, it'll come to the screen. And you just go ahead and it'll ask you to restart, so just hit done and it's going to restart. Now the thing that we're going to want to do though is we don't want it to start up right away because it's going to start into the install. So we'll hit enter here. So what we're going to want to do before it reboots, because it's already trying to reboot into the installation disk, we want to come up here to the right corner where these 3 dots are, and we're going to hit force off. And it says, are you sure? Yes. And so now what we want to do is we want to click onto this, and we want to go into settings, and then this is where our ISO is, and we want to eject it. Save this. Once we eject that, then we can just hit this power button and it'll start KDE Neon. We'll give it a sec for it to boot up. Okay, now it's booted up, and now we can just run KDE Neon from here. Now just remember, when you run stuff in a VM, it's not going to be as snappy as a bare metal, but it will give you a chance to take a look at things, or if there's something that you want to run permanently on a VM, you can do that here as well. And you can set this VM to start automatically when your server reboots. Okay, so I just wanted to show you how easy it was to set up a VM with ZimaOS. And this is great, and it's the fact that it's integrated into the system and you don't have to install it or anything like that. It's ready to use is awesome. ZimaOS overall is one of the easiest server software packages I have ever seen. It's still lacking some advanced features, but even though it's lacking those advanced features for the home user, this may be all that you need. I mean, I'm really impressed, and they keep on improving. I can't wait for a year to now to see what more improvements they have made in the RAID capability, in the share capability, and also adding more and more Docker apps to the Docker App Store here, or Manager. It's just a great application. Again, I really like this application. If I was starting out new into the server world, this is one of the packages that I would really consider because of how easy it is to install, set up, and use. This is TJ with TechMadeEZ. Hope that was helpful. Have a great day.
Now that was